Ever since I started covering Melty Blood a bit more on this channel, I've been getting a lot of comments like these. Basically comments from people feeling like Melty Blood is an intimidating game to get into because it's an anime fighter, there's long combos, and it's loaded with system mechanics. And don't get me wrong, I get that, especially since my channel originally taught people how to play Guilty Gear Xrd, largely considered one of the hardest fighting games ever. I have a lot of experience on the topic of difficulty in fighting games. Now, this isn't going to be another "Are fighting games difficult?" video, because I mean, like, obviously they are, but more so I want to highlight to people that you do not need to be at the level you think you need to be at to be effective in these games against online opponents. But I do want to clarify, there's absolutely nothing wrong with not wanting to play a game because of the skill curve. If you see a game and you're like, damn, that shit looks hard, and nigga, I got a job and kids, fuck that shit, I don't want to play that. Okay, that's fine, that's cool. But I'm just saying, a lot of people are afraid of fighting games or certain fighting games that contain some sort of the following: A large number of system mechanics or moves, B, high-speed movement, or C, long combos. There may be some others, but those seem to be the main ones that stick out to me. See, the way that I look at it is that I think that the reason that people are afraid of games like these means that they don't really understand the whole point and appeal of fighting games in the first place. Fighting games are supposed to be a challenge, hence why arcade modes had brutal bosses. Combo trials are literally called challenge mode, and of course there's always a training mode with the purpose of training. You aren't supposed to be able to execute the long combos. You aren't supposed to understand all the system mechanics, and you aren't supposed to have expert mobility. In fact, nobody ever does. It's a skill that you learn over time. The fun of a fighting game is figuring it out. It's picking a character and not knowing anything about their moves, but over time you get more comfortable with them, and then you start branching out and realizing, oh, I never really used this move before. What the fuck, what does it do? And they're like, oh, I can use that for this. I can do that. You start figuring the game out over time. You know a great example of this? Tekken. Tekken's move lists are longer than the time it takes to boot up Guilty Gear Strive. But like, one of the most important things you learn in Tekken is that you do not need all of the moves to be effective. You can win a match of Tekken using about 4 or 5 key strings that each serve a key purpose in order to get your feet wet. And then as you become more comfortable with that, and as you run into more problems, you'll adapt more of the move list into your arsenal. This is the skill progression that you can't see. It's not measured by a progress bar where it's like, oh, you gained 20 extra XP points or whatever the fuck. It's you yourself as an actual human being, the player, getting better mentally and physically in terms of your ability to execute stuff. You are supposed to be bad. It's like playing the guitar. You're gonna suck if you pick up the guitar. If you've never lifted weights before, you're gonna be weak. You're supposed to. That's how it works. You're intimidated by the long move list, but you need to realize you do not need the entire move list to be effective. Let's talk about one of my favorite fighting game staples. Motherfucking combos, nigga. And I ain't talking fast food. I love long combos. I love swaggy air juggles and wall bounces. As a matter of fact, when I do a combo, I want the goddamn voice lines to be clipping 1,000 times with every hit. I want Captain America and Marvel vs. Capcom to be like, charging stars and But even as someone who's been playing fighting games and following the FGC for 12 years now, when I pick up a new fighting game, I don't automatically know exactly what to do. Yes, of course, skill from prior games transfers and helps me figure stuff out, but I'm still gonna learn from watching what other people do and practice that until I can do it. Point is, you don't need long combos to start playing a fighting game. I always say the best combo in a fighting game is the one that you can hit consistently every time without fail. I promise you, in any fighting game on this planet, there is a shorter version of whatever combo you saw that made you go, nah, fuck this game is too hard. I promise there's an easier version you can do and be effective with it until you learn the harder one. And when you do learn the harder one, that feeling of, wow, I can actually do this, gives you a feeling of accomplishment that some video games just can't give you. A feeling similar to learning an elegant, beautiful instrument such as piano, or a feeling of breaking a bitch ass nigga's ankles on the basketball court. Same thing. It's a feeling of accomplishment, of remembering where you started and comparing it to where you are now. You're comparing yourself to other people too much instead of focusing on your own development. Fighting games are about you as the individual starting at a certain point, and as you play the game, progressing to another point. It's not about looking at the game and going, wow, I bet everyone that picks up this game is gonna be better than me, so I don't wanna fight them. No, they're not. I've been playing these games for 12 years. Everyone online is a fucking idiot. We're all dumb. I swear to God, they're not geniuses. They're not cut from a fucking different cloth. I'm gonna tell you that shit right now. You can do it. Like, dude, there's so many resources and guides and everything on the internet nowadays that it's very easy to just Google something and figure out what tools you need to be effective with certain characters in certain certain games. If you just follow those to the best of your ability, discard anything that doesn't make sense to you or is too difficult for you to execute, and instead extract things that are easy for you to execute or are easy for you to understand. So just to kind of tell you guys a quick story, I have a group of friends that I play every fighting game with that comes out. But originally I was the only one that played fighting games, but I taught all of my friends how to play fighting games because they became interested in fighting games because of me. So I taught them how to play from scratch, all of them. There's about like 5 or 6 at this point that I've taught, and we all play together. When I was teaching them Guilty Gear Xrd, there's a mechanic in the game called Blitz Shield. There's like hella mechanics in Guilty Gear Xrd. There's so many. I cannot tell you, there's a lot of mechanics they didn't even use. And a lot of Guilty Gear Xrd players that are more casual players, not pro players of course, but casual players will tell you a lot of them didn't even use Blitz Shield. Some of them had no fucking clue what it did or how to use it. I know because I ran beginner and intermediate tournaments for the game for like a year straight. Trust me, a lot of people that were like pretty good at the game but weren't like top level didn't even fucking know what half of the mechanics were, but you would have thought they were a fucking genius or they were a beast. Little did you know they didn't even know what half the mechanics in the game. There's so many mechanics in the game that they just don't know. That's what makes the games fun, is that there's always something to be explored. You don't need to know everything. You're not supposed to know everything. Look at games like Super Smash Bros. Melee or the Tekken series. People are still figuring out shit to this day. People are constantly figuring out new stuff, and that really goes for any fighting game. I just think those are like easy examples to point out because when people talk about like what they consider to be the hardest like fighting games, people usually bring those up. Yes, I called Smash Bros. A fighting game, don't get mad at me. Again, I understand if you look at a fighting game and you think it's difficult and you're just like, I just don't have time for it, I'd rather just like boot up Overwatch and press Q with Reaper and kill like 5 people. There is nothing wrong with that. The point of this video wasn't to be like, oh wow, you don't want to play fighting games, it smell like bitch in here. It's more so to just give that extra push or perspective to somebody who wants to play fighting games but is just a little intimidated and feels like it's not for them innately. Feels like they're dumb and they can't grasp it or something like that. That's all it really is just to let them know like, nah bro, like you don't need to know frame data to be effective in fighting games. You don't need long combos to be effective in fighting games. You don't need expert mobility to be effective in fighting games. You don't need to memorize every single system mechanic, or if it's a game with a long move list like Tekken, you don't need to memorize every single move. Now, if the move list is like reasonably short, like 5 moves, I'm sure your brain can handle that. Most modern fighting games have a fair ranking system in which they will match you up against people that are of equal skill level to you. When I learned Tekken, a game that people have been playing forever, I mean Tekken 7 alone people have been playing for years, but the Tekken franchise as a whole, people have a lot of time into it, and I'm mostly a 2D fighting game player, not a 3D fighting game player. So when I picked up Tekken, you think I know how to fucking Korean backdash? No. Do I really try to? Not really. I practice it from time to time so that one day in the future I can do it, but I know I can't. When I go online, I don't try to do it because I fucking can't do it. I don't know all of my main's moves in that game. I don't need to. I still beat people in that game. I entered that game at Evo, I fucking suck at it, and I knocked out the first 2 people I fought against. I think it was the first 2. Yeah, I beat 2 people. I don't know if it was the first 2 right off the bat, but I beat 2 people, and I didn't even know my character's entire move list. I can't Korean backdash, but I was still able to be effective by just watching guides online and just copying pro players. Copy what you can, discard what you can't. If you see him do something that you're just like, I don't know what the hell he just did, just pretend not to see it. Just cover your eyes or something. If you see them use a tool that you can use, then steal it. And then you grow and grow and grow over time. And then after months and months of doing that, you'll look back and go, damn, I can't believe I was ever even afraid of this game.